Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We are doing this online message today. We do not have any in-person church the Sunday after Christmas. Hopefully everybody had a great Christmas and you are just relaxing at home today. But we decided instead of just your normal average message, today we were going to have more of a conversation to close out the year. Ain't that right?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, just to have a conversation of what probably we have thought of, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm sure most of you are going to be able to identify with pretty much the same stuff that went through our mind and what we've experienced over the last year. So we're really going to talk about 2020 and what a horrible year it was, and we hear that from everybody. I mean, you hear it everywhere. Horrible year. We just want to get this behind us. But that's what I'd like to just talk about, a horrible year that it was. How horrible was it, and how did it affect each one of us?
Yeah. Because everyone's been affected.
Everybody's been affected somehow. Now, I know, some people have lost a loved one directly because of COVID. Yeah. And that's a horrible, horrible thing. But every year we lose loved ones. It's just a part of every year. Yep. And statistically, I've read a lot of, you don't know who to believe, but there really isn't any more deaths in the United States in 2020 than there was in 2019. So that's part of life, that we go through a lot of loss and a lot of death. And that's a horrible thing. But how has 2020 been specifically bad for you guys? How did it affect you? Well, you're teaching kids at home, so that's got to be huge.
That was really big back when they originally closed the schools. It was a huge struggle. I felt for the teachers. I felt for all the parents. It was a huge struggle at my house, just trying to get the minimum amount of work done and trying to put ministry stuff together here. And for me, that was the biggest part.
I think for a lot of people who are teaching their kids at home, you still got your job. You got to teach your kids. You were never trained as a teacher. And just a really, really tough time for some people. Yeah. Yep. I didn't experience that. Our kids are all grown up, but what a horrible time for some people to go through that.
Right. And not only do you have to put on the teacher hat, you also have to put on the IT hat, because they're going into all these different programs, and, Seesaw and Zoom and Skype, and there's all these different things that they've got to log into, and they've got passwords, and they're all different for each one. And, trying to keep that stuff straight as an adult is difficult, let alone as a kid.
And luckily for me, 2 of my kids are old enough to be able to do it on their own. My youngest, he needed more help. He's not a kindergartner, first grader. And for those parents, my heart truly goes out to, because that was even harder. But just trying to make sure kids knew how to turn their homework in was also a struggle. So, and not being able to have your kids be with their friends and trying to make them understand why, that was hard too.
So schooling children at home was a huge trial for many, many families,
many people,
which they are going to remember this forever, that the year that we had to teach our kids at home and do all of the stuff. I know for me, you mentioned Zoom. For some of the stuff, we were doing Zoom staff meetings for a while. I was doing some other Zoom meetings with some people. And for me, being an old guy, doesn't like technology, it was a struggle, and it was really hard. I did learn to do just enough to get by, that I could start a Zoom meeting and get everybody on and do all that stuff. For me personally, it was a trial, because not that it was so hard to learn Zoom. It was a trial for me because I just really, really enjoy just being with people. It's not the same. It's just not the same looking at a little square with somebody. Come on, let's just be together. So for me, that was probably the biggest trial that I've had to experience.
I'm the same. I'm a people person. I like being with people, around people, talking to people. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes when I was on Zoom meetings or Skype meetings for work or any of those, I kind of got sad inside. Like, this is now how we interact with each other, and I don't like it. This isn't the same as sitting down and having a conversation,
Yep.
For most of us, if you rewind and look at December of 2019, I mean, the world looks completely different. Our lives look a lot different than what they were. And I know, like, we hear it all the time that, oh, this year was terrible and all this and that. But I mean, when you really sit down and think about it, it's been a long year. It has been a very long year that many things have happened. Even just, outside of COVID, it seemed like it started out chaotic and just ramped up from there. So things look different.
Yeah, they do. And I think every one of us have went through some trials this year, different things. It didn't really personally affect me much when restaurants and bars closed or movie theaters. I just didn't go to them much, so I barely even noticed, However, I know that there are so many bar and restaurant owners out there that can't possibly pay the bills. I'm a business owner too, and I know that if you don't have revenue coming in for 1 month, I wouldn't be able to pay the overhead that it takes to keep a building going and taxes and insurances and all that stuff without income, So, man, what a trying year for especially small business owners, restaurant owners. Huge. I can't imagine anything worse for them. That it would be really bad.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And employees too. You've got employees to pay, and now they're out money. So, it's just a big mess.
So it was a very, very difficult year, trying year. Maybe some of you are feeling the same thing. Like, this year was the worst I've ever experienced, just a horrible year. But I want to remind us of something. We got the Bible here, just going to read something. And before I read it, I just want to remind us, I find it kind of funny, and I'm no different than all of us, that we tend to like the Bible. If you're a Christian, you like the Bible, you like the good parts of it. We might have it underlined. They're our favorites. But what about the parts that aren't underlined? Aren't they just as important? And they are. And we tend to pick and choose. All of us tend to pick and choose. But I think the reason that these things are in here is because God knows what's best for life. He knows what we ought to do in life, and so let's follow it. And there's something that James, half-brother Jesus, wrote that I think is so pertinent to this, that most of us have not looked at it this way. Most of us have not read this year because we want to avoid it. However, it's true, and I'd like to just kind of face it today. He says this, found in James chapter 1. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I want to read that last part again. This whole idea about, persevering in difficult times, that may it finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking in anything. And I think that that is such wisdom from God for us, but how many of us have really done that?
Yeah.
Here we've just faced a year that is probably some of the biggest trials we've went through. And I don't hear many people, being joyful about that. Wow, I'm glad that's happening, because you know what? This is to my benefit. It is maturing me. It is making me more steadfast, more stable. It's making me, be more persistent, and it's developing in my life that I'm being more equipped. I'm growing up. I'm being more mature. I'm not, being tossed to and fro all the time. I actually can handle things better.
Yeah.
And we don't hear that very often.
No.
But yet, look at how, if we did this right here, we looked at all these trials of this last year and said, you know what? I am going to be happy that it happened, because I know it is doing good work in me. My dad used to have a saying, and he would say this all the time when we got hurt. He said, especially if we were going to cry or something, he wasn't into that, Wipe it off, it'll make it tough, that whole thing. I just got hurt. This went bad, hey, stand up and get better, just like wipe that off your face, quit crying. It's just going to make it tough. And isn't that kind of like what James is saying for us as adults? Come on, quit complaining. It's just going to make you tough.
Yeah.
And we could use a little toughening up, you think?
Yeah.
I do.
I think a lot of it has to do with that one word we mentioned quite a bit around here, which is perspective.
Perspective.
It's the perspective you view on the situation that you're in. I mean, imagine how differently a lot of us would think if we change our perspective on the year 2020. If you live in the dark and you stay there mentally, it just becomes harder and harder to get out.
Harder and harder. And just a kind of, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but generally speaking, our culture, it seems like as a culture, we're getting more and more immature as a culture. Oh, this don't go right. Oh, I'm so upset. You know, how like I did that little acting. I'm so upset. You know, this didn't go right. Oh, poor me. And just look at how we're doing more complaining about 2020, and what's happening is it's not making us better at all.
Yeah.
We're not growing from it. We're not developing. We're not saying, you know what, now I can handle if things don't go my way. I can actually live and enjoy life not going to a restaurant, or I can, you know, manage this way or that way. We've gotten so used to, all of us have gotten so used to everything being our way, everything being comfortable. Any little thing goes wrong and we're just like, I don't know what to do anymore. You know, like, hey, let's get a grip. Let's get a grip. Okay. It's not the worst thing that happened in the world. Again, I don't want to be so hard on this, but when I hear people say, and we all have complained a little bit, but when I hear people really complain about this has been the worst year ever, I honestly, I just go to, you must not know your history very well. Because we've had it pretty nice. Even as bad as this year is. Anybody that lived 100 years ago, 150 years, anybody that lived during World War II, the Great Depression, come on, we could go on and on and on. What we went through in 2020 is not even comparable to what people in the past have went through.
Yeah.
Correct.
So maybe we can turn this around. I want to read another scripture that I think is just beneficial for all of us. It's a great reminder, and it's a letter that Paul wrote to the Philippians, and he says this. After he goes through a whole bunch of different, very positive things, he says this. Finally, he kind of just brings it to the end. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is praiseworthy, or if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And what he's saying here is, hey, listen, kind of like going along with James, count it joy when difficulties and trials come. Why? Because it's making us more mature, making us stronger. And he says, now Paul's saying, when we go through these trials, which we're going through, when we're going through these difficulties, he says, you can always find something that is good, praiseworthy, positive. Think about those things, and it will change your perspective. Exactly what you're talking about. Again, it'll change our whole perspective. And we could literally be happy in the midst of difficult times.
Yeah.
Because there's always good things that are happening all around us. But if we're just focusing on the negative, on the bad, and we're just like, poor me, blah, blah, we learn nothing. We miss so many good things right before our eyes, and we miss it completely. So, what do you guys think happened this year that is a positive thing? But we might have missed it because we're so negative, you know. But if we would have all been looking for the positive, anything good, if we could have looked for anything good, what might we have discovered during this year? What might you have discovered teaching your children?
Well, for me, a couple of positives were the teachers in the school districts over the summer did a lot of really good things and put plans together. And now that over this past couple of weeks, we've been full distance learning, it's a totally different ballgame. I think schools have learned how to work with families and parents and kids when they aren't able to be at school. So that's a super awesome, positive thing that's come out of the schooling that I've appreciated. My kids have done better. They're able to connect more on Google Classroom, I think is what they're using, which is like Zoom, which isn't the same, but at least they're able to still like see their friends and stuff like that. So that's one positive. I know that when my kids have had to be out this fall, that there was online options. So that was really nice. It wasn't a hurry up, get back to school or keeping track of that. It was really beneficial from a parent standpoint. We really like that. Adapting to schedules, everything, there's nothing permanent. There's a meme out there, like the worst gift to get in 2019 was a calendar for 2020 because nothing is scheduled. You plan something and a couple weeks later you have to cancel it because either somebody was sick or rules got changed, businesses were closed. But that's okay. Being together, like our family has just spent a lot more time being together, not being busy. I've noticed a lot of families throughout the years, like you're so addicted to your family's schedule and your kids' routines and getting them to practices and games and making sure they're on all these different sports throughout the year. And, that didn't happen. And it was just a drawback. And let's look at the basics and focus on the basics and just come together.
Wow. I think you said some stuff. I'm hoping that all of us are listening to this or watching this really ponder what Radine just said. And that is, wow, if we stop complaining and actually look for something good, a lot of goods come out of it. Look at it's forced the school system to probably get up to date. Really.
Right.
To get more modern in how we teach and interact with each other. You said something about family I thought was just amazing. Let's all just stop and think about it. For so many families, it forced us to be together and not running everywhere. And I know some people say, oh, that was terrible. No, it's not. It's a great thing. To be with your family and to be together more is amazing. But how many of us missed appreciating that because we're just looking at the negative and we didn't see the positive? Because that's a huge thing that came out of this. I mean, let's focus on that. We should all be joyful that we are together with our kids and our families more than we were before.
Right.
And that's an awesome thing. It's different, but if we're looking for the good, we will discover that that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like in our house, it definitely tightened up the family unit.
Yep.
We were good before, but we realized being together and engaging in everything together. And hey, when they give that tagline, "We're all in this together." No, I don't believe that, but we were all in that together. Under that, and we came together as a family, and that's something that's probably the number one thing that I took out as a positive from this year for sure.
Wow. And man, we should be thankful for that.
Absolutely.
Anything else that if we're looking for the positive that came out of this?
Well, I found out that I'm an essential worker. So that was kind of nice. I didn't know I had that title. So that's cool. Right. And I actually, all joking aside about that, I appreciated the fact that I had a job when so many people lost their jobs or were put on furlough or didn't know where their next money was coming from, had to go on unemployment and all of that stuff. I got to keep working. And I was just super thankful and appreciative of that. I know a lot of people that were in that field weren't appreciative of it. They're like, why do we got to come to work? I want to stay home and collect the I'm like, you don't understand how this works. You've got a job. You can still, support your family and give. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I was appreciative that I got to continue to work.
That's awesome.
It's a good perspective.
It is. No, it's a great perspective, man. It's like, wow, this is a good thing. Yeah. What other good things came out of it?
Can we mention what happened a couple days ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My wife gave birth to our second son on
Yeah.
the 22nd. So I mean, when I think about 2020, mine was different than probably a lot of people's because outside of work, personally with my family, we were kind of in our own bubble, not really wrapped up in the COVID hype because for those that don't know, our son Ben was stillborn back in February of this year. And then my wife got pregnant with our son Isaac like a month after we lost Ben. So it's kind of, that's been our year. You know what I mean? That is just kind of, and on just a few days ago on the 22nd, Isaac was born. It was kind of the climax of our own little bubble and this journey that we've gone through this year. So 2020 has been life-changing for me in ways that have nothing to do with COVID. So, yeah.
But how many people have missed the good things in their life because they're so focused on the negative of COVID?
Yeah.
You know, or 2020, and they're missing. That's the point we're trying to get all of us to think about is, you know, all the good things. I'll tell you, I think something so simple, but a really good thing came out of this, and that is more people are washing their hands.
Yes.
I'm serious, man.
Well, and I will say I had a couple volunteers nervous about coming back to help in kids ministry because, you know, kids come with runny noses and stuff. We haven't had a single kid come into the nursery, I don't think, with a runny nose. You know, kids have been healthier because they haven't been out. I was going to say something about shopping carts, but it's kind of gross. You don't see many kids in the stores, which there's a lot of germs out there. Germs are good. Our body needs them, but it's also good for us to wash our hands, clean up after things.
How about more people are just this idea, it's common sense probably. If you're sick, stay home. I used to think that was a sign of weakness. I'll be honest with you. I used to think that was a sign of weakness. If you're sick, go to work anyway. What's wrong with you? You know, dude. But I've learned something this year. There's nothing about strength there. It's just why get everybody else around you sick? So I learned a huge lesson in my own personal life. If you're sick, stay home. The place will run for a day or two without you, and you will be blessing everybody else.
So we have learned the massive importance of common sense throughout the year 2020.
Some of us have.
Some of us.
Let's not go into that. Okay. But I think we have. We've learned a lot. You know, we just went through Christmas, and I hope that every one of us really realized last Christmas, we were talking about even around church that, man, Christmas is such a horrible time for people. They got to be around extended family, and they got to be around people they don't. I hope this year really turned our attitude towards each other. Because this year we saw that people actually realized, yeah, I might not really get along with Uncle Ben. I just made that up. Didn't he make rice? Okay.
Uncle Ben.
I don't really get along with Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But this year we found out that, you know what, I really miss them. Maybe a good thing that we've discovered this year is people are important, and being around people that before we used to think people are kind of a nuisance and I don't really want to go there. We found out this year that, no, I do want to go there. I do miss these people. They are valuable to my life.
Right.
And so it's another thing that we could take from this in a very positive way.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not even I want to go see them. It's I need to have people in my life. It's a need. It's how we were
It
programmed.
is a need. It's important.
It is.
We're not meant to stay cooped up.
Correct.
We are not. And actually, it's killing us. But isolation's killing us. We'll talk about that some other day. But it really is. Isolation's not good. But for whatever reasons we have or whatever. But we would, kind of as we wrap this up, I guess our heart would be to ask every one of you to look at your own life and ponder and to think about what positive things in this horrible year, what positive things has been happening? What good things have we missed because we're so negative on everything so bad? If we kind of get away from that for a second and just do what the Apostle Paul said, how if we just take a few minutes or the rest of today or this week even, just thinking about what is good, and what is noble, what is wonderful in our life, and be thankful for that.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, I think it'll change our lives. It's not as bad as we think if we just look at all the good things that are going on in our life. I know I've shared this a lot, but my two boys run their own businesses, and they're very stressed. And some days when they're having a bad day, they call me, I had a horrible day, this broke and that didn't wrong, these people didn't show up, blah, blah, blah. I just simply ask them, can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see? Yeah, Dad.
Yeah. Probably.
It's a pretty good day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Huh?
It is.
It's a pretty good day. God is awesome, and he has blessed us with so many blessings, but it's up to us to just look at the good things. We need to take a minute and stop complaining about the bad, but like James says, to even count it all joy when difficult struggles and trials come in our life. Why? Because they're working good in our life, and there is always good, so focus on those good things. So we would like to leave this year with that thought of focusing on what is good, what is a blessing, what is noble, what are these positive things, positive people in our life, and focus on those things, and it will change our attitude.
Absolutely.
Yes, it will.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, cool. This was fun.
Yeah.
Chatting.
It was.
Okay, good. Well, there you go. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching this morning. One last thing we just want to mention before you guys tune out for the day is year-end giving. We just bring it up. You guys have been very generous, very generous givers this year. So thank you very much. But we bring it up just to remind you how to get that year-end giving in before the end of the year, and that's got to be dated by the 31st, right?
If you mail it in, it needs to be postmarked by the 31st. Otherwise, get it in online by the 31st as well.
Awesome. And yeah, a real easy way to do that, accesschurch.info. You can just do that all online. But anyway, thanks again for joining us. Here's the classic joke of we'll see you next year.
I'm into that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
okay.
see you next year.
We will see you next year. Have a great new year, and we will see you next Sunday starting a brand new series. So have a great week, guys. Thanks for joining us.